Thank you for standing up at the other room. I see them all coming out the main thing there. Cool. Yeah, hi guys. Gonna start this now. My name's Frankie and I'm an addict. You guys that are coming in, please find a seat. I think James has gone to get some chairs. So,
heckle.
Yeah. We'll give it a minute or two then. James getting some more chairs. Come in, guys. That's all right.
Big son.
We've got some more chairs here.
Sorry. But we never saw that.
She showed me all that because we stayed in this area.
She was going like this corner, this one.
It's not right yesterday. Oh, I bought mine, yeah.
It's
just physically.
Okay. It's all about those who are here, not about those who are not here. So let's crack on. Right, welcome guys to the Basic Text Workshop. We've done, yeah, get yourselves sorted out. I've done this a few times, a little bit of an introduction. This will be very different. Okay, this is a meeting, but it isn't a meeting. Okay, this is something which can be scary for some people, and that is. Hey, sit down. Great. For some people, this can be a little bit scary because what it is it's interactive. So if you get asked a question, please don't do the Narcotics Anonymous thing of thinking you have to have a fucking answer. Because one of the things, and sorry, if you're frightened by swearing or the mention of drugs and you're in treatment, this ain't for you, this workshop, okay? I'm going to try and keep this really real, okay? And just to explain some stuff, we've done this a few times. When I say we, the actual instigator of this workshop was Archie. He was the one who first started getting this together. Since then, it's morphed through about 3 or 4 of us taking this on and doing this differently in many styles, and we try stuff. You know, the way this program works, how I've learnt to do it. I'll talk a little bit about me. I first came to Narcotics Anonymous in 1992, and it was through HNI. God bless HNI, even though they've just kicked us out the other room and we're on the program. God bless them, eh? But what they did was they told me about Narcotics Anonymous, and when I came out of prison in '94, I started coming to NA, and I didn't really get the understanding of the NA program until around 2003, when I started to look at the basic text. And also the book, which a lot of people told me about before, and I'm sure if you guys have any questions, stick it on James, because he's someone who's been around over 30 years. And it's before the book came out, because it was only a little white book, so the only recovery information we had was from AA. But their program was too limited for us. It says it, we have an introduction reading which says that the AA program is too limited for us. And if you think about addicts in general, where people always want more, we must have driven them mad in AA meetings in the old days. You know, we must have driven them absolutely crazy. You know, the poor guys are in there trying to deal with their, drinking too much. And, we're in there, speeding off our heads and so on, and necking our banners, and, the way we are. And I'll jump into a little story as a kind of an icebreaker. I will bring Archie in to help out when I run out of ideas of what to say. I heard this fantastic story about Jim Henson. Okay, Russell's heard this. Jim Henson was the founder of the Muppets, okay, and he was a member of the Mothership, okay. So what he did was, when he was creating the Muppets and he was creating all these characters, he was in between jobs between Sesame Street and the Muppets, and he didn't know what to do with himself. And his wife said to him, his wife suggested, why don't you do them conventions in North America and go to all the conventions? Because same with NA, you can go to conventions in America and follow the summer and go convention to convention across the States. Something I've never done, I'd like to do. Sounds great, 6 months of summer. He went to all these conventions, went to the meetings. When he came back, he had the names and the ideas for all the characters for the Muppets. Because what he found, right, was that every meeting, come in guys, sit down. At every meeting, there was a Sam Eagle. Yeah. You know, there was a Miss Piggy. You know, the other thing what he found as well, there was a beaker, you know, beep beep, and all the characters started to fit. There was an animal, and he noticed that when he went to all the different meetings, because there was like the rock and roll guys and all sorts, and from that, what I heard, okay, and this isn't, you can't find this on the internet. This is kind of hearsay and part made up by me, but I've exaggerated it. But what he also came up with the idea of Fraggle Rock. And Fraggle Rock, if you ever get to see the programme, they're basically the addicts. They don't sit still. They're always... And they run around in groups. You know, if you would see Fraggle Rock, so tick, 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 they run around in groups. And that's kind of where he got the idea for it all. Right? So, yeah, that's a kind of bit of insight. But his wife, being the kind of woman that she is, she dropped the bomb on him. And the bomb that she dropped on him was, what person are you? Out of all those characters that you've gone to visit all those meetings, what person are you? So I have to think to myself sometimes, I am definitely not Kermit, but I don't know where I fit in all of that. Hopefully I'm a new character. So whilst we roll with that, I'm going to look at basically going on for about 30 minutes, rowing you guys in and then doing kind of a question and answer. If you're like, here mate, go and sit there. Go and sit there. Yeah, that's the other thing as well. If you get up, I will stick it on you. Because one of the things which I learned, I don't know about you guys, but everyone's different. I'm a cat with a laser pen. You know, when I'm in the convention with Raymond yesterday, Raymond was sharing. It was a great share. Love Raymond. Listened to him many times. He did a very good share yesterday. But the person who was fucking walking backwards and forwards at the front, I was like... Because that's the kind of addict that I am. Some people are able to focus. I can't do that. I'm coming up to 15 years clean and I can't focus. So I get distracted easy. I put that down to drug use. So, right, with the basic text workshop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out some things that are questions in the basic text that you may not have heard or you may not have seen, and I'm trying to get you a little bit inspired with actually picking the book back up, the book to have a look. I have a question. Those of you who've heard it before, or those of you with more than 2 years clean, we're trying to help the new people to get this. And one of the ways I do this and how I've learned to do it is I will say the opposite. There's a good chance I will say something so you correct me, because I've learned from doing workshops. If I tell you the answer and do all the 12 steps with you and tell it exactly how it is, like, you know, unmanageability is around your thoughts and your feelings. It's better that we show you that ask you for you to tell us how your unmanageability is around, as opposed to telling you what it is. Because when you're told it, what I've learned and we're sponsoring people, you don't get it. But if I tell you the wrong thing and you correct me, you've got that forever. So that's part of, it's not about getting things right, it's about getting your own understanding. So, where shall I start? Okay, wherever I like. Yeah. Who is an addict? Okay. What makes us an addict, according to the basic text? Okay? What makes us an addict? I've heard two speakers here say it's a spiritual, mental and physical illness, disease, condition. If I was 30 days clean, that would really spin me out. And even if I knew, would it do me any favours? I came into a fellowship where people were going, it's a threefold illness. No, it's a twofold illness. You know, and I was thinking, well, it's a fivefold illness. You know, I've got, yeah, and on top of my sex addiction and cake addiction and gambling addiction, and you know, it's a tenfold illness. You know, so I don't care really how things work where that's concerned. All I'm caring about is what do we need to do to fix it? We need to find out what's wrong with us, because all of us are different, even though we're told we're all the same. And all of us need to do different things, because I've met addicts who just go to meetings and they're okay with that. If you're an addict like me, you have to go and do the step work several times, just so that I can stand in the queue at Sainsbury's and not start having resentments towards, hello Dave! Cool. You know, it's just so that I don't get resentments towards the poor, you know, person in front of me who's counting their change out to pay for their shopping. You know, I'm the person who has to really literally practice the program. Come in, guys. Does someone want to shut that door so we all get really hot?
Yeah.
Thanks, James. Okay, so thanks for the pointer, Archie. Basic textbook. What kind of person reads a textbook who's not in recovery?
Student.
Student. Okay. But what do? Do they read it? What do they do with the textbook? Study it. Okay.
Learn it.
Mark it, highlight it.
It kind of comes under the studying. It's good. Yeah.
Ask someone about it.
Yes, you can do that. Ask someone about it. So, I'm wondering how many people have actually studied the basic text. It's a basic textbook. It's a textbook, basic. Keep saying things over and over, I will, to drive you mad. Textbook, basic text. It's a book to be studied. And the thing with the book to be studied, which is not frightening, if you actually look at the programme of recovery, and this is the first textbook, the 6th edition is the first textbook which is called Our Programme. It's his sponsor. It's the first. It's the first. It's okay. It's the first. No, it's not. It's the first. Where was I? Yeah. It's with the textbook in this. That's the actual programme of recovery. It's in the 6th edition. It's the first time they actually put Our Programme in the basic text. If you go to the earlier ones, they didn't put that. If you look at the 5th edition or the edition or the 3rd edition, you know, one of those, and yeah, there's loads of people who like the 3rd edition, but I like the newer stuff. I think with NA, one of our advantages of being a recovery fellowship is that we evolve. We've got a really beautiful book called The Living Clean book. It's really amazing. Really love that book. Just want to promote that. But the actual programme in the book is that, which is 54 pages. It's not really too much to study on something which might save your life. And it just gives you pointers. With Archie and with Aaron, who's now in the room, we devised a way of going through the book by going through and reading it. And what we did was we looked for lines which said what was either a direction or a suggestion. Because what we found when we was having groups together, we couldn't actually agree. We couldn't agree on what was suggestions, what was suggestive in the book, and what was a direction in the book. I know when my head's snowballing, I'll ask Archie, what's a suggestion, Archie, or a direction we came up with?
Where it tells you what to do.
Yeah. Can you give an example, or should we pass that to Aaron, put him on the spot?
Where's Aaron?
Why is it in the back?
So, Yeah, anything like what Archie said that it tells me what to do.
You got an example?
I'm thinking, that's what I was saying.
Must remain absolute.
You must get honest.
Must get honest. That's a good one. Yeah.
Isn't that 54 of us? In that
Honesty of the mind and willingness.
54. Honesty of the mind and willingness.
What about
Yeah,
they exist?
they exist. There's loads of musts in there. And what we have with the must, for example, see, there's a lots of different things where different people have looked at the program and become very intelligent, and some of them are a bit ego boosted, but they're to help. And it's like if you pick up a tablet and you download the basic text, you can put must in the basic text and it will list all the musts up for you. It's like, it's not really rocket science, it's just a bit of technology that we have these days. But with the musts, what they learned was all these different addicts, because the book was made by thousands of different addicts. When they put the musts in, they all had to sit round in a group together, and what they had to do was basically agree that is something that they must do. And I'm sure, go on Arch, you got one?
Yeah, I got one.
Did you get it off your phone?
Most one, yeah, I got it off my phone. Spiritual tool. Phone. Knowing people in meetings and they go, I use my spiritual toolkit. And what the fuck's he talking about? You get it from W.H. Smith. Anything you can use to like talk about like recovery is your toolkit. So step 2. We need to find something to fill that void. There you go, there's a direction.
Yeah.
It's telling you what to do, and it's telling you it's not optional. It's telling you you need to do that.
Okay, so one of the things which we started to evolve with learning how to do the basic text study was where Archie said the word need, that is what we now call a must word. And the example, the kind of example I was giving with that was, I must breathe, I need to breathe, yeah? I'll try and make this a bit like a proper workshop. Any more?
In this program, the first thing we do is what? Stop using. So it tells you, doesn't it?
Just, for instance, what Archie just said, not all of the suggestions are musts though.
Yeah.
They're not all musts.
No.
So it's not just where it said must, where we take it as something that we should do. The other things are in the book that are suggested. But now we know that we must do it.
Totally.
The term direction, use direction.
Yeah.
Like must stop.
Okay, so we'll come back to the must and that, because that's a whole workshop in itself, and that's a really good example to get that going with the suggestions and directions. If you just leave here today and you can go home and have a look at your basic text in whatever way you look at it, and you can go through the 54 pages or have a look, preferably with 2 people. It always works better with 2. We just find it works better with 2. On your own, you can get a little bit focused with it, but with 2 people, it just seems to have a magic, because you can kind of get that cantankerous kind of disagreeing kind of going, which seems to be magic for addicts to come to a resolution of working out what works for you. But the original question that I put on the room, just to give you guys a chance to sweat or a chance to think, was what makes you an addict, where NA's concerned. What makes you qualify to come to these meetings?
Our reaction when the drugs stop. How we run out.
Desire to stop using.
Basically, person whose life is controlled by drugs.
Anyone else?
Inability to stop, innit?
Somebody who's in the grip of a continuing progressive illness.
I think the book says it's not the amount of drugs we take that makes us addicts, it's how we deal with life when we put the drugs down. In no sort of way.
If you can put them down.
See, there's a lot. Okay, let's say a lady for a change. Yeah. So.
I was just going to say, when I pick up, I can't stop.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my ones. Yeah, please.
When I get I must use rather than I must breathe. So anything that I use that I must. above anything else, and I must use above my children, I must use above breathing, I must use above having money. So actually, that's when I know that I've got an addiction if I do it above anything else. So
Yeah.
it's a must for me.
Yeah, and the qualification around all of that is basically, with NA's concerned, is if it's causing you a problem, you're welcome. If you've got a drug problem, you're welcome. One of the biggest issues that I had personally was that when I got on this and realised that I was an addict and I actually fitted the text as a textbook addict, I started to get a little bit arrogant and start, thinking to myself, well, they're not addicts, these people are not addicts, these people come to the rooms. And NA's advert is, if you've got a drug problem, come out. We don't care if you come here for 6 weeks, sort your solution out and go. There's a lot of people who run around this program saying you must go to meetings, you must work the 12 steps. That's actually, in my understanding, it's not true. You do what you need to do to help sort your life out. If you happen to need to stay here and kind of like, reference to James and myself again, and you have to kind of move in and build your house here, that's because, we need to be continuous with the program. Not everybody seems to need to have to do that. I have to do that in myself.
Well,
Just
working, applying elements of the programme, their suggestions.
And you only do what's suggested for yourself, because if I was given quite a few different suggestions, and some of them were in the textbook, and some of them I didn't do because they wasn't worthwhile to me. That's why the programme's suggestive.
Humorously, you get a few people that come and go and come and go.
And it's none of my business.
Yeah.
It's none of my business at all. I'm here to try and help the next Frankie who comes along. I'm not here to rescue you lot. And I think one of my favourite adverts, before I hand over to Archie, one of my favourite adverts with this is what I did. I'm not, if you guys pick it up, great. If you don't, there's someone else. There's someone else. I am not selling this to you. I'm only here to reach out my hand and say, come with me. That's all I'm here for. Archie.
Oh, it's gone now.
I think what you just said is really important, because I think most addicts are rebellious, and when someone's telling me personally what to do, and even I have it with a text, so if I hear someone in the meeting, I'm kind of moved back around again after having 10 years, sobriety through this program, and then went and did a bit more research, but it worked. And I'm back, and I'm glad to be back. But still, that rebellious streak in me. So even sitting here and listening to this is hard, because it's like there's that part of me that just wants to say, I don't know, it's just, I think that anyone telling me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. Someone was sharing about it in the main show. Who was it? Was it that fellow Ray? Or
Yeah.
Raymond.
Yeah, well, one of my major things, to go back on my experience, you guys might not have this experience. My experience was, I remember coming into the Milton House meeting at Highbury in Islington and going to the Angel meeting on a Wednesday and sitting in there and looking around the room with balls of gear in my mouth, waiting for me Motorola to start rocking, and I'm looking around the room thinking I wouldn't even fucking use with these cunts. In fact, I wouldn't even sell them gear. And that, I was so kind of, that rebelliousness, that's so anti, that thing of when they come in with the different analogies around surrender. Aaron.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you said around that rebellious spirit. But my experience is that what it says in the literature is that when we broke it, we became willing. So I reached a point in my, I was going to say my recovery, in my using, my destructive behaviour patterns, that it was, what do I need to do? Tell me what I need to do. I've run out of ideas. So, and then that's when the program started to work.
And I love that. And that's a little bit further on to where I was going to take it next. But I love that because in how it works, one of the big things, and coming to meetings for 10 years before I started to get this, maybe we should open the door, do you think? Should we open the door? Sorry guys, we're cooking up. One of the things which it says, written by hundreds of addicts, put in our book, it says, if you want what we have to offer, if you want what we have to offer. And the only thing we know about what people in NA have to offer is when we get to an NA meeting as a newcomer, is to look and see how are these people behaving. You know, how are they dressed? How are they presenting? Because a lot of the times when I go to meetings, even today, I'm not always down with it. But then again, I have to remember, I have to do the 12 steps so that I can keep myself and live my life and keep myself reeled in. Because left to my own devices, I'd make everyone dress the same. Because I come from that council estate background. If you wore a Lacoste t-shirt when everyone else is wearing Fred Perry's, there's a good chance you'd get beat up. You know, so all that thinking, I have to have that brainwash and change it. And part of it was with this. And I'll jump back to the what makes us an addict bit in a minute, because some of you have already answered it. But as it says with how it works, the card we hear in virtually every meeting, if you want what we have to offer and are willing to make it, the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Then you're ready. So it's a case of kind of get to a place where you get desperate, because in my experience, unless you're really lonely, you don't come to NA because you want to. You come here because it's like last stop shop, because you've driven the doctor mad. Your family, you know, have that thing of, you know, they just sick of you. Your family look at you, it's like every time, with my family, every time I looked at money, a £20 note was a crack token. You know, it's like, it's just, when my thinking gets so distorted, I have to kind of come here and really start to want this and pursue it with the need to change. Now, to take it just back to page 5, on the bottom of page 5, in Who is an Addict, where we were starting off, it says, although physical or mental tolerance play a role, many drugs require no extended period of use to trigger allergic reactions. Full stop. Our reaction to drugs is what makes us addicts, not how much we use. Now, my allergic reaction was when I used, I became compulsive. And I've got to own something. If I've got a large packet of cashew nuts at home and it's a Sunday night and I'm about to sit down and watch one of the latest films off Pirate Bay I've just loaded, once I eat that first cashew nut, I don't wrap the packet up and put it back in the cupboard. I'll trigger my allergic reaction to cashew nuts and start becoming compulsive. You know, that doesn't happen to everyone, Pen, does it? No. But for some of us it does. Some of us it happens with chocolate. You give me bars of chocolate, my wife says, where have you put them? You know, I hide them in the drawer. I don't care if I've got chocolate. I'm not interested in chocolate. Don't let my wife know where they are. You know, she'll be up 2 o'clock in the morning going through my drawers.
So are all fat people addicts then?
That's not necessarily, I don't have an answer to that.
No opinion.
No opinion. No opinion on outside issues. Well, it's a classic one. It's a classic one, isn't it? You know, it's like it's a classic one. You know, I'd go and sit around people and they'd buy a lottery ticket, and I remember in my early days they'd buy a lottery ticket and I go, yeah, well, that's how it starts. You know. They have a couple of wins 5 years later and I start thinking to myself, I'm missing out here. I must be missing out on something. But I have to take responsibility for me. So I try not to call them fat people, you know. Actually, one of don't you wish recovery was as easy as putting on weight? Don't you wish that? You know, it's like, I do. Putting on weight's easy for me. I find recovery a little bit difficult. So, one thing, if you haven't done this with your sponsor, something I'd like you to do, because I love to mess with sponsors. I'm trying not to swear. I love to mess with sponsors. Because messing with a sponsor, your job as a new person, or someone being taken through the steps by a sponsor, well, oh, hold on, White House, Russell. one of the
Getting well.
it's getting well. Getting well. 2 brown and 1 white. Sorry, Soon come, yeah. Yeah, soon come. One of the things I like met. Yeah, I'm just round the corner.
Can't you see me?
See you, I'm there in a minute. One of the things is the questions in the how it works. Before we do step 1, after you've gone to your sponsor, and your job is to ask your sponsor awkward questions. That's your job basically. When you go, you ask your sponsor, what makes me an addict? Why am I an addict? Why me and not them? Mine's quite simple in remembering stuff. My sponsor always suggests that you have something personal about yourself that you can absolutely guarantee happens to you if you use. Because the bit we're going to start talking about is when you don't use anymore. Because that's where the program recovery really comes in. But for me, what I have is I know that when I start lying, that's basically all bets are off. Once I start, I can absolutely guarantee when I use, I can guarantee I start lying. I work really hard in this period of time of being clean to not lie, not even white lies, to have honesty of self. Because when I originally came in here, being honest was about not stealing or bunking a bus fare. Now it's about honesty of self, being true with myself, so I can say things to you guys, and I'm not worried if you tell it to my wife. I'm not worried if I'm coming in and I'm speaking about somebody, even if I'm judging somebody, as long as I'm in a place of coming from harmony and love, that's the whole point of it. It's about being honest with myself. It's about having good intentions. Now, some of the questions in here, we have to ask ourselves. And one of the problems I had was I went to other fellowships as well, and they told me that I was sick. They told me that, you have an illness centred in your mind, you're sick. You can't sort out your own problems. That's why you need someone else. But it's contradictory, isn't it? It says you've got to ask yourself a question. So if I'm sick, I can ask myself a question. Of course I have to ask myself a question, and this is the struggle with the honesty, and this is why we have a sponsor, work backwards and forwards with the sponsor, and the sponsor helps guide us through this. And that is, here we go, it says, these are some of the questions we asked ourselves. Are we sure we want to stop using? Now, you guys who are sponsored people who have done this, have you got any experience at all you can share with the group? So I'm kind of talking to Aaron and Archie with this, because I know we've done this before. You got any experience of asking sponsees if they want to stop using?
Yeah, I went through them questions with somebody, because my thing was like, just to backtrack slightly, and I wouldn't answer the question, is to try and drag people into recovery, because it means I'm part of the program, I'm doing this, and I've got these sponsors who really weren't willing. That bit is meant to come from them. Mm-hmm. if you're really willing and you're willing to put the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. That's a question they have to ask themselves. Do you know what I mean? And then tell me. And then I'm just there if they want to do that. I'll be dragging people to do that. So in the how it works bit where the questions are asked, I was working with somebody, we went through most of the chapters, and we got to this chapter, and he answered really honestly, and he said, you know what? I don't think I really want to stop. It says, do you realise that drugs use, that we use drugs, and the drugs that use us?
Yeah.
Yeah, the opposite around. And he answered really honestly, and we got to the end of them questions, and he said, Aaron, I don't really want to waste your time. I want to come to meetings, but I don't think I'm ready to do this. And it was within myself, I wanted to force him, he needs to do it, because I want to go in the meeting and say, I've got this sponsor and he's done really well, and look at how well I am doing. What do you want to do?
Hey, my sponsor's a celebrity. Yeah. I kind of down with that stuff. Yeah. Well, hear that. There's like, as what Aaron was saying, I'll tell you what happens for me, because I want to pass it on and bounce around now we're going into the last 20 minutes. What happened with Aaron, where my experience of the programme is, what I started to think of was a line from the basic text which says, were we just looking for the absence of pain? You know, because that one spun me out. It's like, am I in here because I want to save my children? Am I in here because I'm getting problems at work? You know, or am I in here because I've realised inside myself that thing what Archie mentioned earlier about, you know, on a gut level feeling, that sort of kind of emptiness that some of us seem to suffer from, that spiritual void some people call it. Am I here because of that? Or am I here because I'm unable to manage my life? Because I turned up because I couldn't manage my own life. I didn't come here because I had some spiritual void. I didn't hear that till I got here. And then I started to understand that, hey, that actually does fit me. When I first came here, I couldn't pay for anything. Yeah, I couldn't even pay attention when I was in meetings. Never mind, you know, buy things. You know, so it's like, that's kind of like where I was at. Archie, let's chuck it on you.
20 minutes ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was.
What's your thoughts?
I'm going to throw something else into them. You know, the question staying with the first question, what makes you an addict? And you will hear, I have heard and I experienced in my time here, misinformed people who used to love going around talking about misinformed people. And they would say to me, you have an allergic reaction to drugs that sets off a craving.
Phenomenon, go on.
Yeah, I'm not going to quote it word for word because that's their book. And the thing is, I'd sit there and go, what are you talking about? There's certain drugs I take, I can just put them down dead easy. I'm not fucking interested. As soon as my drugs come, I'm more interested in them. So I'd have a difficulty understanding, but I've learnt some stuff since I got here. And I just want to say this, so has anyone here ever used, anyone here who's not got this programme first time and part of their story is that they use drugs again? Is anyone, so you got hands there. I want to ask this question now. Did you use a different drug for a time at the beginning when you started using again? Okay. And did you think when you were using that other drug, they're a bit melodramatic, that lot in NA, innit? Look, everything's fucking rosy. Yeah. I'm managing this. Hey, they're all talking shit, basically. So I'm just going to share like what my understanding is now, and you don't have to understand this. I can take certain drugs that don't set off any craving whatsoever. However, I do have a reaction every time I take drugs. Now, like Frankie lies, I become self-centered with any drug, and it may take days, it may take weeks, it may take months before I find myself looking to reach for the one that does it for me. So I've had a reaction, and I don't even know about a reaction to the drugs. You know, when it says our disease, there's the obsession of the mind, physical compulsion, and the spiritual aspect of our disease is total self-centeredness. I never heard that till I was like 2 years clean. Yeah, I'd wait the step that it says it. So and then, because I have to evolve my understanding, because there's a thing there, there's in this Who's an Addict, right, I'm going to just read something, right, it says at the very beginning on the cards, anyone quote what the first line is of the reading, Who's an Addict?
Most of us don't have to ask this question.
Most of us do not have to think twice about this question.
We know.
Yeah. I stick on the most of us. Yeah, I'd sit in meetings go, most of us. I might be one of the lucky ones. Sitting there rattling, want to kill myself, thinking, ooh, I should get back to that. Right, but when it goes on further in the book though, it starts it again, it says, those of us who have found the programme of Narcotics Anonymous do not have to think twice. Because I couldn't hear when I got here. I only heard little bits at a time, like you said it really well before, you and Aaron. If you tell me what I need to do, I will show you how you're fucking wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads us down the path of understanding. Leads us.
I once heard someone say this was their autobiography, and I kind of get that, because what I do is I start seeing myself in this, what's going on. You know, that's my first autobiography written by somebody else. Just like to touch on a little bit of my understanding around the disease, because I've go to loads of meetings, done loads of meetings for years, and people talk about the disease concept. Okay, now my understanding of a disease from my secondary modern education, growing up in London and learning how to bunk off of school, kind of self-taught addict perspective, was the first thing I actually understood about a disease was a tree that had Dutch elm disease. And what I learned about a tree with Dutch elm disease is a disease is progressive, it will kill the tree unless it's treated. It's the same thing with people who have diabetes. There's different levels of diabetes, you know, stage 1, 2 and 3. With most diabetics, if they don't treat their diabetes, it can become chronic and fatal. They have to treat it. So what that's saying to me is the disease rests on that allergy side, it rests on the body side, which means it's decrepit, which means it goes with time. That's why I've learned that I hear that the program is progressive, the illness is progressive. But the way we arrest it, or how our disease becomes arrested, is to work on the program which deals with, like the step 4 onwards, it deals with the moral psychology. So if you're here, there's one of the major things is you might not be the person who needs to have the moral psychology. You might not need to do step 4, step 5, and you know, find out your character traits or character defects, whether you're prideful or wherever you are with that, and whether you need to make amends, become willing and reset the amend that you need to make for yourself, because you don't realise you get challenged every time you're in the outside world unless you make that amend. And somebody who needs to help someone like I have to do, you know. But you're in actual worse position, because you're the person that one day if you pick up, because you have the disease concept, because you have the disease of it, you can't stop, you kick off, and you've got no, what they like to say, we have no defence against it. Us guys who actually have the disease, when we do relapse, because we've worked the program, it fucks everything up. We have to come back to NA. We have to come back. You see people, they get 10 years clean, go and pick up and they go, I've got to go to the meetings. They won't even talk to you. They'll sit in the meeting, they'll be at the front. I like the way the Americans say it. They sit in, you know, the emergency room, they sit in the front row, you know. What they call the back row? Remember that one?
Waiting room.
The waiting room, that's it, yeah. Yeah, God's waiting room, that one. Emergency is the front row, A&E, yeah. And then God's waiting room at the back. Yeah. Go on, Pen.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Frank, for this meeting. Thanks everybody for being here. I think this thing about self-honesty was something that I was very confronted when I first came to NA and thought, oh, you mean I've got to talk about this and all the things I'd done wrong. I've got to go to you know, the courts, and I've got to go here and there. I've got to tell the truth everywhere. And my sponsor said to me, it's about self-honesty, that thing you were talking about. And throughout my recovery, obviously, you start to, you know, amend it in various areas. But one of the things that I realise is that I recognise the illness when it's going on in me. You know, like you said, you were lying, and you know, for me, it's an energy. I go with that kind of, you know, when I'm like, I've got to have this. You know, I'm going to go and spend this amount of money, or I've got to, you know, see this guy, or you know, whatever area it's gone into, and it's an energy within me, and it I see it as being very dark, you know, and my justification with it and the way that the lies that I tell myself is that, you know, if I take more of the dark, it'll bring back the light. You know, because darkness is an absence of light. But the way that I see it with my distorted thinking is that if I take more of the darkness, it'll bring back the light. And quite often I've had this thing of you know, the discussions I had in the beginning with various people, and one of them was that, you know, the reservations rob us of the benefits of recovery, and, you know, what harm is it going to do me to just let go of those reservations? Because then I might get this wonderful program.
That's a great point where the reservations are concerned, because there's a difference between having reservations, like, for example, the classic one I used to meet with people is they say, I've got to have a drink at my daughter's wedding, you know. But when you're an addict, when you find out you're an addict, when you get your diagnosis or your prognosis that you're an addict, all bets are off. It doesn't matter about the daughter's wedding. You know, diabetics don't turn around and, I'm not a diabetic, so I'm just putting this one out there. They don't turn around and go, well, I'm going to have a high fructose drink and fucking eat loads of cake, knowing they're going to end up in A&E. You know, because once you know you have your condition, once you know you're an addict, then you've got the choice. Do I treat this or not? It's a big difference. It's a big difference.
You do a better risk assessment. You do a proper risk assessment.
Well, you do a proper risk assessment. You know, can I go out and buy a bit of gear? You know, knowing that I can't save anything till tomorrow. You know, and can anyone identify on this? Because I'm going to hand over to Aaron. Anyone identify on this? Whenever I got a bit of even non-addictive marijuana, right? Even when I got a bit of non-addictive marijuana, I would say I will save a bit of that gear for tomorrow. And the minute it went to 1 minute past midnight, it was tomorrow. You know? I hear other people giggling. Aaron.
No, I was just going to point out, do you know, earlier on you spoke about some of us can come and they can go, and others, you know, like you, said other people have to build their house here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, what I found how the illness works is, you know, there's a part in the basic text where it talks about we concede to our innermost selves.
Yeah.
We're addicts. But it doesn't end there for me, because I can do that. However, if I don't continue to treat the illness that I suffer from, I will get back to that place again where I think that maybe it's a good idea to have that drink at my daughter's wedding. So just because I've consumed it, that means I need to work a program of recovery in order to stay in that place. Otherwise, I will go back. You know, hence why I believe they talk about a daily retreat, a daily program, a daily. You know, otherwise I wouldn't have to come. I could just say to myself, I'm an addict, I suffer from this illness. I will go to jail if I pick up, because that's my one. You know, you got to know what happened. I will go to jail, and that's the end of the story. But unfortunately, it's not. Or fortunately, it's not.
With the thing with maintenance, when you get the diagnosis being an addict, the thing is, because it's a progressive illness, we have to kind of progress with it. If we maintain it, we're kind of treading water in the same place. That's one of the things I've learned about people who have the illness of addiction, is they then start stepping into the place of, they start looking at their diet. What do I put inside myself? Because we don't have the answers. We're just touching on this stuff about addiction. It's really a broad spectrum, you know, and some of us go there and then there. Some of us, we start looking at our diets, you know, some of us start looking at starting to maybe exercise, and even all those areas can become problematic. So maintenance is something which, and one of the things which bugs me out a little bit is, and this is because I'm an NA geek and a bit of a nutter, this is one of my personal resentments, when people say bridge to normal living. Right? If you think you're going to be normal, you're opening a back door to use again, because if I'm normal, maybe I can be normal like one of my old pals and start having a puff again. Because I've never had a problem having a joint.
The normal is subjective.
Normal is a washing machine.
What's that fucking mean?
Yeah.
This is a bridge
Right.
to living. It doesn't say normal, does it?
No, not in our book.
No.
No, not in any of our literature. I've been searching for it.
It says a bridge to life and a living kingdom.
Yeah,
Not a bridge
life.
to normal living. Bridge to life.
Yeah, it's going back to the autobiography sort of part of it, and the maintenance and building your house as well in NA, because when I first come around, people quoting stuff out of the basic text mean nothing to me. And the more, people were doing it, I used to think fucking drones, norms, all this sort of thing. But until, luckily, my sponsor passed it on to me regarding the highlighting, the musts, the suggestions and the questions, that program became personal to me. So when I was struggling or anything, it was that he said, this is a personal program, that we debated it about some of the things that I thought was a must. He didn't think it was a must, and certain things, so then it changed from a must, suggestion and a question. And he would say to me, you're struggling, so you carry out the musts, you take on the suggestions and you answer your own questions. And that's how it worked for me, and that's how it became more personal, and now that keeps my maintenance up, and it's how I've built my house in recovery, so that's how it's helped me.
Great, Archie.
I'm going to do just a couple of minutes. Right. How many different understandings do you think are in this room right now? And who's right?
I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm right.
You're definitely not.
I'm
not right,
Spartacus.
is he? Right. So, and if he fucks off somewhere, what do I do then? Yeah. Whose understanding is going to keep me clean and alone in the dark at night when the shit hits the fan? Mine. Mine does, yeah. And it's a good thing. Conceit in the most self, because we haven't heard it said today.
Fully conceit.
Yeah, never mind fully or not. One of the protagonists of this sort of studies stuff said to me once, and he's got a lot of time, he's got a lot of ego from the other side of the water, and he said to me directly, he said, have you conceded to your fully most self? I said, time will tell. Right? Today, what I've done today, because I've conceded to me in most self today, yeah, and the maintenance, I just want to pick that up because I've got a little things to say to you, just to highlight stuff, the varied sort of what we're up against, what you need to do, and why the book, the literature never changes, but I do. How I see it, how I'm feeling, my experiences, all that changes all the time. I just like this as a little game, innit? I'm going to say one word, just one single word. When I say this word, you'll get a picture in your head, possibly. Yeah, and then I'm going to ask different people what came into their head. Are you ready for the word? The word is apple. We're not doing association.
He's not doing salt and pepper.
Oh, pear, yeah. Well, somebody else, what came into their head?
Pie. Record.
Phone, record. A green apple, a red apple. Do you see what I'm saying? That's one word. So let's talk about God. And our understanding, what does God mean? Or take any word out of the literature, take maintenance. What it means to you and your understanding is something that you do, that works for you. But somebody else will hear something else. But I'll tell you something else when you talk about this NA literature stuff. Two people who come from different places, when they sit down together and talk, they often find themselves meeting in the middle. Because their interpretation of the words sounds slightly different, but in their heart they mean the same stuff. Right. They come together.
Before I hand over to the gentleman there, just want to pick up on that part of the thing. What we said at the beginning, just to remind you guys to remember, is I'm really pleased Archie brought it up, and that is it's the thing with maintenance, and like as James has said, it's interpretation. You know, don't take me as someone who knows everything. All I'm doing is trying to play a game of quote things from the book, throw it out. I'm not someone who's clever. And this is the thing about with a lot of people in NA. Don't take them, they're just addicts like us. The amount of times I sat in different places piping, and there was always some addict who was always seriously clever, who's still there today piping away, you know. The amount of addicts I met who have the answer is incredible. The nice thing about being around 25 years is I've met so many addicts who told me I'm doing it wrong, who are sadly not with us anymore.
God.
You know, I know I've had people confront me outside meetings telling me I'm doing it wrong. You know, so gentleman there, he had his hand up for such a long time. Thank you.
I don't know. I really appreciate the things that I've heard, and the thing that came back to me, that I heard in my first year was, I love my first sponsor that I had for 7.5 years. He told me, the most important information in the basic text is already highlighted. It's black. And that for me was a real good thing. What I also know is, the other part, for me that has stuck with me throughout, the entire 28 plus years that I've been around now, is that, we must change our old ways of thinking or go back to using it. And that's it. That is it.
And that's a great place to kind of leave this, because I want to do one last question and be the horrible person that I am and leave you with it. Okay, and this is in the first group of questions before step 1. And this is the question that we ask new people, generally who are not really detoxed yet. They may be detoxed and coming into the programme, or they might have been just hanging around for a year, chasing other members and poncing fags outside meetings. I don't know. It says, do we know that our addiction changed us into someone we didn't want to be? Dishonest, deceitful, self-willed people at odds with ourselves and our fellow man. Sounds very old text. Do we know we was like that? That's kind of like the questions to ask for the criteria, to get to this bit. Now, would someone like to finish the workshop by reading the last bit after the questions there? Any offers? Anyone? Just easier to read. Thank you.
How much am I reading?
Just after the question.
Symbols.
From when?
Oh, right, okay. Sophie Addict.
Hey, Sophie.
When we were using, reality became so painful that oblivion was preferable. We tried to keep other people from knowing about our pain. We isolated ourselves and lived in prisons that we built with loneliness. Through this desperation, we sought help in Narcotics Anonymous. When we came to NA, we are physically, mentally and spiritually bankrupt. When we come to NA, we are physically, mentally and spiritually bankrupt. We have hurt so long that we are willing to go to any length to stay clean. Our only hope is to live by the example of those who have faced our dilemma and have found a way out. Regardless of who we are, where we have come from, or what we have done, we are accepted in NA. Our addiction gives us a common ground for understanding one another. As a result of attending a few meetings, we begin to feel like we finally belong somewhere. It is in these meetings that we are introduced to the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. We learn to work the steps in order that they are written and to use them on a daily basis. The steps are our solution. They are a survival kit. They are a defence against addiction, which is a deadly disease. Our steps are the principles that make our recovery possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, can we close the meeting with the wee version of the Serenity Prayer?
Thank you very much.
And James, would you be kind enough to lead us out, please? Once they've all linked up.
Okay. As we know, this is a we program, not a me program. so we'll close the meeting in the Serenity Prayer using we and God as you understand God.
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back, it works if you work, it's a work if you're worth it.